there's shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatterspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good morning, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is Ask George. How are you, George?
Fine, thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's strange time, but when you're Newcastle supporters, nothing's strange.
No, certainly not. And nothing stranger than the media picking up on a story that Frank Chipper's put out as well. I've got to give him a mention. Many of you who were on X will know of Frank Chipper, king of the wind-ups. And he put a tweet out yesterday to say that Matt Targett had been left behind in after the tour. He'd been left in Asia and he had to make his own way back. Matt Targett got in on the fun yesterday on his social media by saying just made it back for training. But yeah, very funny. How many people actually got taken in by that made me laugh.
Guaranteed.
So funny. Anyway, let's also wish a happy birthday to Les this morning. Happy birthday, Les.
Happy birthday, Les. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for all the sterling work you do as a moderator in the chat. It never goes unnoticed. And very, very good tag team you and Jules have made since almost day one, which is great to have you on board. So thank you very much. Enjoy your day, Les, whatever you're doing. And yes, thank you to John Askew, who, as always, has sent in an email. And it starts very simply like this. He sent it in a few days ago. So, John, I do get all your emails, and I pick and choose when I use them. Is the criticism of Isak fair? I fear it's exactly what all our rivals want, especially Liverpool and even certain influencers at NUFC who might like him on the Mersey. He's world class, and it's tremendous that he's at our club playing for us. It's hardly surprising he wants to be well paid. That's just the way football is. Why would anyone in a normal job accept 200 quid a week when they know they're at least worth 300 quid a week at a firm down the road? And the firm down the road is offering 300 quid a week. That's the Isak situation at the minute. This whole nonsense should have been resolved months ago. And it's sad that Paul Mitchell was somehow tasked with challenge of negotiating. Clearly didn't go well. And Mr. Mitchell is no longer with us. There must be a reason why we keep mentioning Amanda and Mirdad. If they'd been in charge of the situation from the club side, the whole business would have been concluded ages ago. Look at the state of things now. Do we really want to help make Liverpool great again? The best solution for me would be for reconciliation and a contract worth 300 grand a year and a 2-year extension. It can happen, even with PSR. Then we can kick on and enjoy next season. If he leaves, there's a feeling we might sign Sesko. But they're totally different types of players, and Man U will likely scupper that one way or another. The best solution is to keep our best player on Tyneside. But does the board feel the same way? Do the fans feel the same way? Or would they prefer to provide one of our main rivals going forward with a colossal boost and at the same time massively reducing our chances? Ask George or anyone else who might be interested. John, great email. And if anybody does want to email a question in, please do. This is the email address you can get us at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. as I say, sometimes it's better to be able to email us because you can get a lot more off your chest, and I'm more than happy to read them out in a variety of accents if requested. But yes, George, feelings on what John's had to say there?
Well, lots of common sense as always from John, and lots you can fasten on to. Where I'd begin is that the problem we've got is when I went to who said what to who, and who didn't say what to who, and all the rest of it. I was very harsh about Isak at the beginning, but the more I hear about them being talking to Amanda about extended contract or wage rise before she left, and her saying she'd pass it on, and that was at the beginning of the season. Well, isn't it funny? The first few games of the season, he went missing, and then lo and behold, after the Carabao Cup final, he went missing again. And had that anything to do with the chat he had with Van Dijk on the pitch at Wembley? You know, there's so many conspiracy theories to go with it. But it does seem he's been treated, certainly not by Amanda, but certainly by Paul Mitchell. If he was tasked with the job of, keeping our prize asset happy, and went and said, as is reputed to have said, I add that, you've got 3 years of your contract to go, you just stay where you are. Well, nobody's going to accept that, even Isak. However, the other side is that you listen to that Note All Romano, who seems to be paid by all the big clubs to spread the stuff. He was saying the other night that Isak had negotiated 300 grand a week with Liverpool a month ago before the cup final. So where do you go? Where do you go? It's ordinary fans. It's very difficult. And John raises an issue that I've raised more than once. It's about communication with the fans and negotiation. And he raises the issue of Amanda Maydad. All I can say is if the record's fairly clear that when we wanted Anthony Gordon, who sorted that out? It was Amanda. When we had a problem with Joe Linton's contract with Ashworth, it was dragging on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Amanda had it for 10 days and it was sorted. And if you look at what her and Meanda did for with the golf, for 2 years, these people were throwing billions at lawyers to try and solve this impasse between the two golf giants, and 10 days of negotiation with Amanda and Meanda, and it was done. So on that side of it, on the other hand, and I've got to hold my hands up and say, is that I'm not a great believer of people coming back. So this is not me making a statement saying we want Amanda back, but it would be nice to have an Amanda style negotiator stroke mediator in the club that had the understanding. Amanda wasn't a football person, she was a business person, but by hell she picked up on the nuances of what football needed and what football was like. Plus she picked up on the Geordie dream, the Geordie nation, as quick as anybody has. And it's amazing when somebody gets it, they get it, like Rafa did, and etc. Lots of really good common sense in John's email, which I can agree with and I can understand. And it just makes the frustrations even worse because but on the face of it, as we said last night and we said before, it's all self-inflicted if you look at it deeply enough, and leaves our manager, who's trying to do everything, not looking too good either. He redeemed himself the other day for me when he made his statement about you've got to earn to play for Newcastle United, to train with Newcastle United and be part of Newcastle United. He didn't name names, he didn't have to. The whole world would know who that was aimed at. And of course now it's evident it was, because Isak's now training on his own in an afternoon when all the other players have gone home. Some would say that's because he's getting treatment on his injury. I don't think anybody in their right mind is going to believe that. So it's a nightmare. For want of being devil's advocate, I don't think the Liverpool saga's finished, because in Germany, the Red Bull group, of which Leipzig's a member, their performance manager is a gentleman called Jurgen Klopp. And if he thinks that Sesko is such a talented player, why wouldn't he be saying to Liverpool, well, just spend 75 million and get him? You don't need to spend 150 and get Isak. So there's a twist I think could still happen. But however you put it, and John email sums it up quite nicely. It's a blessed mess of partly of our own making. There's no question about that. Not helped by the fact that Alexander Isak just went public and at a very, very inappropriate time. It couldn't have been the worst time as far as Newcastle's concerned. And listening to the pundits again this morning, chewing over why this player won't come to Newcastle and that player won't come to Newcastle. Well, part of it might be all the rubbish yous are talking. Is it the nonsense that yous are all putting out about the club that's putting people off? But it's a good starter, John, and lots of good points which I can agree with and understand.
Ian Robson, he's emailed us. He says, well, the farce continues. Once again, we put the time and effort in only for one of the big six to swoop in and take the player from under our noses. We're playing poker with a bunch of card sharks with a marked deck and several sets of aces. We just end up looking like chumps. Hell, we've got enough egg in our face to feed omelettes to half of Newcastle. Mind you, Man U must have had a tip-off with Sesko that the sod wanted them all along. How can you underbid and still get the player? It stinks. But surely the club must now realise we just haven't got the finances to compete, and we've now got to lower our sights. Target those like Alanga and Wissa who want to be here. Watkins may well be another. Who cares if the latter two are 28 and 29? They bring goals and Premier League experience, and we'll get 3 years out of them at least. Who's to blame for this mess? Never mind Andy Howe, Steve Nixon and Eddie Howe himself. They weren't appointed to oversee and negotiate transfers. I'm pointing the finger at PIF, as in my view, they fail to hold to account those in the boardroom to account for their lack of progress and their unbelievable paucity of vital revenue. 2 disastrous director of footballs, a CEO with a major health issue, and a CCO whose idea to generate significant income is to constantly bombard the fan base with 1 set of replica shirts after another, including flogging shirts in the recent Far East tour for £30 less than here, plus training gear and leisure wear. PIF must get the next appointments right if we are to progress and compete against those that we consider our rivals. Otherwise, the future doesn't hold much hope, and I've experienced more than enough mediocrity in far too many of those regimes who've run the club in my 62 years supporting NUFC. Thanks for that, Ian. Another good email. Lowering the sights is what I'll take out of Ian's email, George. And, short term, buying Wissa, who clearly wants to come to Newcastle. And then, Keith Downey is building our hopes up with that one. He seems to think now that Brentford have more or less brought a centre forward in, that Wissa will be allowed to come to Newcastle. Wissa coming to Newcastle would be a good signing. But if we went for, say, Watkins, and it was 27, 28, 29-year-old, another, 2 of them coming in, or if we brought Dominic Calvert-Lewin in on a free, whatever, both of them are in that kind of age category. Short term, those players could, in essence, help us to get Champions League football next year, help us to get another cup in the next year or two, and, still give us a lot of entertainment. So is Ian got a point? Has Ian got a point? Is he right there that maybe we should look at that level and say, okay, they're not going to have any sell-on value, but that is outweighed by the fact that if we get in the Champions League season after season, we're going to increase our commercial revenue.
Absolutely, and he's right another way, and hasn't it been proved that we're good at that? Because sorry to hark back, but when we started this adventure of the takeover, and Eddie Howe brought players in, who did he bring in? He brought in an unknown centre forward called Isak, an unknown midfielder called Bruno, and then a little bit later, with the help of the director of football, we brought in Tonali, who to me is going to be one of the best players we've ever had. which is a huge statement. But he's that class. And Botman came in. None of them were what you would call marquee signings. Some of them, I've got to say, I had to look up on the internet to find out who they were, and then suddenly they're not just good. Where Eddie plays them into the side, and lo and behold, they're not just good; they're fantastic, and go on to be fantastic. So if that's lower in the sides, let's have some more of that, and I'd be quite happy. The crucial point you make for me, Steve, is that at the end of this window, we've got to have bums on seats. Otherwise, the European dream and everything else that goes with it is going to struggle. The thing on our side is that the format of the European Cup now is altered, and I think the alteration to that format actually would help us. But we're still going to need experienced bums on seats. We've got lots of talented youngsters coming through. Young Murphy at centre back looks like he could get games this year, and so on. But at the end of the day, we could do with a bit of experience sitting on the bench. And if that has to be people who are not exactly the profile we want, but have the experience, and I would include Calvert-Lewin in that. Short term, I would go for that rather than go into the season light on experience on the bench. One of our biggest drawbacks in the past has been bringing people off the bench who could affect the game or who could influence the game, and we're in danger of going there again if we leave things as they are. So I get the sense of that email and saying, well, okay, we're not in with the best, but let's take the next lot. And I wouldn't be unhappy about that. As I say, the evidence is that Eddie Howe can bring people in who are almost unknown, and yet turn them into great players, and add that to things like Joe Linton and what he's done to the other Murphy. I mean, let's have some more of that. I'd be happy with some of that. And if you're looking for experience, I mean, the other issue, another name that was mentioned by the lads, and I immediately supported them, was that I like Bruno's friend at West Ham, Paqueta. I was a bit nervous about the possibility of him coming with all this betting stuff hanging over him. Well, that's all gone, all cleared up. And I think he would be a good fit for us and just bolster our midfield just that bit at a time when we might need it. But I also am heartened by the fact that seeing how young Miley played in some of the stuff in the Middle East, in the Far East rather, especially the game against Tottenham, he looks like he's getting his legs back. And if he did, that would be a great boost as well. But we mustn't go into this season light. We need some more experienced legs, and if it's Ollie Watkins or Wisser or even Calvert-Lewin, then I could live with that for a year or two, because as you say, it could well be the way to salvage another trophy, because I'm still convinced, despite the Isak issue, that we're capable of winning one of the cups, and I still am firmly convinced that we can win a European place next year. So we need to bolster that. We mustn't go into the season light. And if that means looking elsewhere, then we look elsewhere.
Morning to Mozza and Alan. They're heading home today. Hope you've had a good breakfast. They're just chilling in the sun. They've had their breakfast. Great to hear from you. Hope you've had a nice day. And Jeff has finally overcome the technical problems that he faces on a day-to-day basis. And he is live in the chat. Good morning, Jeff. Question for George. He says, what tactical improvements would you like to see from Newcastle United in the coming season?
In the cup, tactical improvements. Well, I'd like to see Eddie be more inventive, like he was, for example, in the Carabao Cup final. I thought his tactics and setup in the Carabao Cup final were great, were immense. and wasn't fazed by the fact that he had young Livramento on the left instead of on the right, and all that did was showed how talented young Livramento is, because he didn't just put Sella in his back pocket. He actually became an attacker as much as a defender. So more of that from him, please. And similarly, the two semi-finals against Arsenal were a tactical masterclass. And in fact, the way he handles Arsenal per se, even the game we lost against them 1-0, it took a wonder goal to beat. We really, and when that happened, we could have been a couple of goals in the lead. So more of that, please, is what I'd like to see. More invention instead of the sitting back and hoping. I'd see a little bit more of that invention, for example, in those silly home games that we threw points away, which cost us dearly at the end of the season. I don't think those would have happened. We would have found a way through against Brighton, against West Ham, against Fulham, and so on. So yeah, rather than stick to a particular tactical play, is that you're posing, Jeff. I'd like to see more invention of the kind they used in the Carabao Cup final and in the two Arsenal semi-finals.
Okay, Ian Bauer, good morning. He sent us an email to nufcmatterspodcast@gmail.com. He says, first of all, I love your shows. Keep them coming. He says, can you remember a while back, the King of Saudi Arabia said that they are cutting back on global investment? He says, I found an article which I've glanced over. I couldn't get past the paywall, unfortunately. But anyway, I managed to find a different version of the same story. And he's just a bit concerned in his email. He wonders whether that's had a little bit part to play, in PIF, because a lot of people say that they feel as if PIF have, drifted away. We're not as important. But I think, we reiterate time and time again on the amigos and the professionals in particular that they have so many businesses. But Newcastle is still a huge focus. Ian in his email goes on to say, it's my opinion, and I do wish Darren Eales well, but has that also been the issue? And with Amanda and her husband leaving abruptly, appointing director of footballs that we have in the way, the likes of Mitchell, he felt that might have upset Eddie, and they may well have got rid of Eddie with the appointment of Mitchell. He said this is not a great summer. Is essentially the tone of his email. I don't want to go through too much of it. He just wants to know what our opinion is. So let's go back to that early part of the email where he's talking about, the global investment. Saudi's cutting back on global investment. Would that be the reason? Do you think that Newcastle maybe, haven't gone out and done stuff as we all expected them to?
Well, their actions totally contradict that, don't they? Their actions towards sport generally and to football in particular actually contradict that view, because they're investing heavily in World Cups and other trophies like the Club World Cup and other things that they're doing with UEFA and with FIFA. So all of that kind of contradicts the notion that they're cutting back on investment. And certainly in sport generally, if you look at the things that they're doing across the board, it's just incredible, and there's no sign to me that's affecting PIF. My reading of that would be, the little I know about it is that I think the global investment that might be at the top of it is to do with energy things and to do with investing in machinery, military stuff, and all the rest of it. It might well be. You see, they buy heavily they've bought heavily from us and from America in the past. It seems that they're actually talking to the Russians now as well. So that whether that's part of it, I don't know. But in terms of sport and football particularly, I see no evidence in what they've done to suggest there's any clawback at all. So that bit doesn't bother me at all. In fact, far from it. I believe our chairman when he says, and I still believe him when he says they want Newcastle United as number one. And I've got to tell you, there's a bit of me thinks that that's why we haven't heard anything much about the stadium for a while. That's just my opinion, mind. So no, I don't fear that. I get the sense of the global investment thing, but I think it's more in industrial and energy things rather than what they're doing in sport. And the evidence is, as I say, that all our investments in recent times in sport have all been very positive. In fact, haven't we had people questioning us saying, "Oh, PIF's giving money to Spurs," and you know, and is that money that should be coming to us? Well, it's, you know, in business, it's a thing called leverage. You know, we helped Spurs today, and there's a vote in the Premiership and coming up shortly, and Alramaya rings Daniel Levy and says, "Hey, remember when we give you that money?" You know, so I don't panic about things like that. As you said at the beginning, they have lots of interests, and they feed them bit by bit. But none of that is money that was ever intended for Newcastle United, as far as I can see.
Okay, let's get back to questions. John Askew asked us a question in email. He said, many supporters generally hate feigning injury to waste time. It happens all the time and the authorities basically do nothing about it. Rugby, they allow the trainer on the pitch to deal with this but continue the game at the same time. That, for me, would solve the problem in football. What's your thoughts, George?
It's not a bad one. I mean, there are lots of other things that irritate me as well as feigning injury. And because we all understand, for example, the stop and so on because of head injury. It's immediate and all the rest of it. But on the other hand, I've never seen a referee get the yellow card out because he thinks somebody's swinging the lead, haven't got knocked on the head, you know. And is that going to happen? I think not. The notion of the trainer going on the pitch to treat is probably worth a try. However, the problem and the slight difference with rugby is that rugby tends to where the injury is. Rugby tends to drift away from that area of the pitch because the play goes on. Where in football, the movement of the players on the ball is much more dynamic. It's across the pitch and up and down the pitch a lot more than a rugby ball is. But it's worth a try. For what it's worth, there's one modern thing that's come into the game which I would stop immediately. And that's this business that Pickford invented, was every time he gets the ball now, as do all other goalkeepers, including ours, they dive on the ground as though they'd been shot, you know, and lie there for 20 seconds and waste more time. Well, I call that simulation, which an outfield player would get booked for. Well, let's book a couple of goalkeepers for simulation. They would soon stop. But it's very irritating now that every goalkeeper you see, even on the continent, they collect the ball, nobody near them, and they drop on their knees and on their chest and look around to see who's there, with no reason at all. So let's start throwing a few yellow cards at that to save a bit of time. But the area that irritates me greatly is the time that goalkeepers waste. That really has to be looked at, in my view. And it's not new. The year we got promotion, for example, when Darlow was our goalkeeper, somebody worked out that during that season, Darlow wasted an average of 20 minutes of playing time, wasting time holding the ball, kicking the ball, placing the ball, dropping on the ball during that season. Now, I know he was probably playing to orders, but really, that much time? No, it's a nonsense for me. And you know, if you want to take it a bit further, my old hobby horse of throw-ins as well. The time that players waste. Is it here, ref? And then they still run further up. Oh, all right, ref, I'll take it there, ref. And, you know, and then the ref comes over and warns them for wasting time. Okay, ref, but every time that happens, another 10 seconds disappears in the win, and then eventually when they take the throw, they still run about 10 yards further than where the ball went out. Well, as you know, Steve, I've talked to you about it. I would get rid of throw-ins altogether anyway. Never mind.
Okay, we are halfway through the show. As always, we will have a quick ad break for you to go and refresh your glasses. And yes, a big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickys.co.uk, email info@mrvickys.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2-crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. And don't forget, you must get your orders in for the fanzine. NUFC Matters does a fanzine every season, and all proceeds will be going to Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. 4 issues for £25, which includes your postage. The link is pinned at the top of the chat. You just need to click on that and make your purchase. We do have PayPal, Apple Pay, you name it, you can pay on their pay by card. But yes, please get them in before the 31st of August so we can inform the printer how many we are doing. We're up to 60. We need to hit that golden number of 100 really to make it worthwhile for the charity. So please dig deep and support a very good cause. Jules was in the chat briefly. She is at work today, so that's why she's not in the chat. But she has kindly set up the Football Fantasy League. The code to join the league is 6EJ79. And if you want to go Super 6 instead, PIN number is P5EU29. And join those, please. Jules puts a bit of time and effort into sorting them out. And if you did miss the codes, all you need to do is rewind the show when we finish just to find out exactly where they are. Okay, let's get back to the questions, or a couple of points that were made whilst we were away. George, he says, have you seen Mark Clattenburg's suggestion to stamp that out? If the keeper takes too long, the ref gives a corner the other way. Or if taking on a throw, the ref gives it the other way. Clattenburg said most time wasting comes from throw-ins during his time, he said. And somebody's also suggested, I think it was Blue Rhythm Boy again, should try and get Clattenburg on to do a show about rule changes and the way to improve the game. He does podcasts nowadays. Interesting. But yeah, good points, George.
Well, I did see Clattenburg's thing, and you know, he was absolutely right. In fact, that's where some of what I said came from. The fact that when the referee starts talking to the players take advantage of that and say, "Is it here, ref? Is it there, or what?" And every time the prevaricate, there's another 10 seconds gone. And as I say, my feeling over the last couple of years, the way in which throw-ins have gone, is I would do away with them. I would replace them with a indirect free kick. I wouldn't give a throw-in at all. I'd give an indirect free kick. And make it much more of an advantage for the attacking team than it is at the moment. And the other issue for me as a Newcastle fan is, I'm tear what little hair I've got left. I took it quite often and by it in '92 at the way we operated throw-ins. Sometimes we get a throw-in if it's anywhere near our goal, our half. We take a throw in, which is supposed to be our advantage, and within 10 seconds, 20 seconds of taking the throw in, the opposition's shooting on our goal. Well, what sort of advantage is that, for God's sake? So now the whole issue of time waste on lots of areas, but Clattenburg's right. The two he picked up was goalkeeper, which I've followed up with, and throw-ins, and it's it's there for everybody to see, and that we, the fans do try and get onto the referee's back by catcalling and all that sort of thing, but it doesn't work. It needs something more official and proper, and give the power to the referee if they'll use it.
We've got a bit of old naval question, George. George, a lecturer in the 70s was explaining how the bullet front of a ship came about. We were doing flow dynamics. Do you worry we're losing the area's innovation skills, says JJ?
Oh, well, most of the people in the river who would know about bulbous bows are all driving bloody taxis now. There's so much. Our region is the history is so incredible that you couldn't believe. I mean, over the last century, from Parsons, Stevenson, both the Stevensons, and then people that whose names have disappeared. R.G. Mann, who invented things that made diesel engines clean, got rid of the nasty things in diesel engines, and all these things happened, and of course the output of that is that it went into our businesses on the river. So yes, all of that's gone. And even on a lower level, you see, I found it interesting when John was talking about how players have got every right to go and earn what money they want. If somebody's going to pay them twice as much, they're entitled to go. That goes all the way down. I mean, I talk about, as Neil does, about his grandfather, about my father, Harry, who was a fitter and turner. And if on the river a company got a new machine and they didn't have anybody to operate it, we knew they would come knocking at my father's door. It wasn't unusual for a manager from the Slipway or the Northeastern or Parsons Marine or Swan Hunters come and knock on the door and says, does Harry Mitchell live? Yeah, we've got a machine, we don't know who to operate, and we're told that Harry could operate it. And that's how he used to do. He never stayed in the place very long because he was in such demand. And it was that reputation that dragged him into the Air Force at the finish. So yeah, I understand that. And the bulbous bow is something that people, even now, still try to research. And I spent a lot of my time doing model tests in towing tanks around the world. And that's one of the things that I used to do is look at the real impact. Most people think that simple explanation: the ship makes a wave, the bulbous bow makes a wave, and the clever naval architect makes the two waves combine and they cancel each other out. So that's less friction less fuel, and the ship goes faster. But also underneath the water, everybody thinks that the water just streams across the bottom of the ship out into the propeller. Well, it doesn't. It goes in nice wavy lines like that called streamlines. And one of the things I invented many years ago was I invented a system of being able to trace those streamlines. And someone at the university suggested we should patent it, but when they worked out how much money would get back for using this stuff, it would cost more for the patent than it would for making the stuff. So nobody ever did it. But yeah, all of that stuff has gone, and slowly but surely gets further away. I mean, we still have the cavitation tunnel at Blythe, which belongs to the university, in which all the great ships' propellers were tested in. And that's not happening now. And even the work in the tank is reduced to very little at all. My last big public thing, if anybody's interested enough to look, is if you look at Port Stanley in the Falklands, there's a floating harbour which the cruise liners use nowadays. Well, that was designed and thought of in the university, and I did all the model tests. So but all that's gone. As I say, the people who would have done that and be interested in that, they're all driving taxis now.
And as Jeff says, we lost machine tools, the base of the food chain in the 70s. So there we go.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Smith, good morning, sir. Good to see you in the chat. My ex-brother-in-law studied naval architecture at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Very interesting.
Wow.
And James says that the way AI is going these days, such innovation is now becoming a thing of the past. I'll let you be the judge if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah, it's a strange world we live in now, James. Andrew Murray, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Don't forget, we don't plug that a massive amount on here, but if you want to become a member and support us, you can do it via YouTube. John Rowland, just talking about the Man U Newcastle battle for Sesko. He says it's a bit like United going in a shop where a top is £100 and they offer £10 a year. John, you're right. That's exactly what it's like at the moment, because it is crazy that Newcastle are the highest bidders. And the longer this drags on, George, I've got a feeling, Man, you don't have the money to pay up front.
Well, I'm certain they don't. Nothing could be truer from the fact is that how can a club less than a year ago, last November, the new part owner was saying, if I hadn't have done what I did, we would have been out of money by November. Well, how has that changed from November to now, when they're spending hundreds of millions of pounds on players? Where's the correlation with that? It just doesn't make sense. So he either was fibbing then or they're fibbing now. And I think they're fibbing now. I don't think they have the money up front. And that's the problem. It's not to do with whether the player wants to go or not. I think it's to do with whether they can afford the money up front, if that's what Leipzig are asking, where we can. We're in a fortunate position. And it irritates me greatly, and I said it last night, that all this competition between the top six, or so-called top six, and the rest of the league is being done on clubs that owe billions, not just thousands, billions. It's just obscene. And on it goes. I mean, the trumpet in Liverpool saying Liverpool can do what they're doing because they're very well run. Yeah, they're so well run. They're well over $1 billion in debt. There's something missing in the equation, I think, is what I'm saying. Can I just go back to the guy who talked about somebody doing naval architecture at MIT? In the 1980s, I was seconded to the American Navy, and part of that secondment was to go and talk to young naval officers at MIT. So I've actually lectured at MIT in my time, and that was a great thrill. And it's it is, if not one of the world's greatest places for naval architecture and marine engineering.
Good stuff. James says Leipzig prefer our bid, but Sesko wants Man United. We haven't given a firm no as of yet, and I believe our reps in Leipzig are hanging around because they think it isn't nailed on. I agree. The FA Cup final is the second last weekend before our last home game. The day after, do the club not think we will reach either final? Never write us off, Phil. Never write us off. You never know. Jeff says, question for George. Do you think C. Northgate Parkinson will put in an appearance at the new stadium?
Very likely. Very likely. You never know with people like that, but I think there'll be lots of surprises in the new stadium, to be honest, Jeff.
Who is C. Northgate Parkinson? Forgive me ignorance.
Well, it's just one of these people who's made himself a personality out of being a personality, if you understand what I mean. He's actually nobody, but he makes himself somebody. And I see the point Jeff's making. Is that is that the apex? Is that the summit of where we're going to go when he appears at the new stadium? And it's a good point. But he's actually a nobody who's made himself somebody.
Phil Shuttleworth says, if Man United can't pay up front, we should offer more upfront from the add-ons and see if Leipzig will say we accept Newcastle's offer rather than Man United's. Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, there's definitely a bit of gameplay going on here. It's not as cut and dry as Man United think it is.
And I still would like to see if Jurgen Klopp's got anything to do with it in the background.
Yeah, Jeff says work expands to meet the time allowed. C. Dan Smith says he was a Naval historian. Getting one over on Man United after all the media bias would make my year. It would just be like Shearer, almost like Shearer, Craig, wouldn't it? What concrete info is there on a new stadium? There isn't any at the moment, Blue Rhythm Boy. But of course, we were all sent a survey. All season ticket holders and members were sent a survey. So they are certainly looking at the options, but there isn't any concrete evidence. There isn't a spade in the ground. We don't know. We know there's a petition against building on Leazes Park. I guess you, to use an old phrase on this channel, join the dots. And it certainly looks as if Newcastle are moving towards that direction, but at a very slow pace. Alan McKenzie just says most of the miners, welfares, football and cricket teams have disappeared. Where I come from in Northumberland, leagues have gone. Most pubs and clubs had teams. Kites was a popular sport. It's all gone. Kites. I went to a few Northumberland pubs, North Yorkshire and Northumberland pubs over the last couple of months, and there's kites is still happening, Alan. But you're right, it's almost a dead sport now.
Well, kites is making a comeback, I understand. That pictures are being made in various pubs around the area in Northumberland and Durham. So that's all. And as regards the welfares, well, when I was at Newcastle, first at Newcastle as a youngster, the number of requests for friendlies against teams all over the Northumberland and Durham was enormous. And so sometimes twice a week we'd be trotting off to Mickley or out to Anfield Plain or up to Long Horsley or other Ellington, where they had one of the most fantastic pitches in the country, both cricket and football. Much better pitch than St James's Park was at the time, I can assure you. And they all wanted friendlies. The downside is a youngster playing with Newcastle United, the one thing you did know is that the welfare lads were going to kick your legs because they wanted to win and show how much better they were than Newcastle United. But yeah, all that's gone, and I regret that as much as anybody. The other side of it for me was when you were signed the league slip for Newcastle United. I didn't sign professional forms, but I did sign Football League forms. I've still got the slip in me scrapbook, which was interesting because then they could let you be what they called a permit player. So if I wasn't playing for Newcastle United, I could ask them, can I go and play for X, Y, and Z? And one of the teams I used to play for quite regularly was Wolves End Rising Sun, the local colliery welfare team. And that was great. I loved that. I loved it financially as well because I got more bloody expenses off Forza and Rising Sun than I did off Newcastle United. It just appeared in your boot.
Blue Rhythm Boy says, no one mentioning the restructure of deals. If Man U are offering more upfront and easier to achieve add-ons, in which case their offer is stronger. At the moment, it certainly doesn't look like it's stronger, though. It doesn't. And yeah, we can only rely, I guess, on what we're being told from the likes of Craig Hope and Keith Downey. You know, they're men on the scene. Everybody else is doing it remotely, and you know, doesn't have a remote clue about what's going on, I guess. Personally, I don't think it's over yet, says James. Liverpool, £197 million debt owed to owners. Yeah, I mean, all of these clubs are in exactly the same boat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's really strange, isn't it? It really is. Let's see what questions we've got. From James, question for George. Who, in your opinion, are the best 3 foreign players to play for Newcastle? I think we've had this one before, but we'll go with it because it'll have been a while ago.
Yeah. Well, the first one for me has got to be George Robledo, the first South American to play in the league. He was just absolutely incredible goal machine. You know, imagine a forward line where you're centre forward and you're attacking midfielder. The centre forward Jackie Milburn got 32 goals and Robledo got 28, all in one season. You think, for God's sake, if that happened now, wow, you know, they'd be worth hundreds of millions. Then after that, come further into more modern times. I have to say, I did enjoy Mirandinha's time at Newcastle. There was something special about him, the first Brazilian, and what a shot! What a cannonball! And a little known one, although I mentioned him this week because you and I were talking about the Fairs Cup. I think Benny Arontoff didn't get a very good shout, and yet he was a wonderful player for us. Very hard working midfielder, great skill, even weighed in with the odd goal. And then come to the entertainers. Well, you know, you could go through the whole list. Ginola, Albert, you know, all were absolutely incredible and right up to date. I think is going to be the best of the lot, and I don't mind admitting my favouritism. I think Sandro Tonali is going to prove to be by far and away the best international player we've ever had. So there you are, for what it's worth.
Okay, next question. Do you think PIF will lose interest in our project and sell up, says C. Dan Smith?
No, I really don't. It would be completely contradict the way in which the Saudis operate. They're very reluctant to give up on a project that they've started, and I would be amazed if they did. I see there being marked changes because I think the chairman will be furious at what's been going on. Because A, it's happened, and B, I suspect he didn't know too much about it. And the instant reaction, for example, to the Mitchell scenario was fairly clear, and that only he could do that. You know, left by mutual consent usually means that the boss's big number 10 shoes up the bloke's backside somewhere. You know, he obviously won't like that, and the negativity of all this last 2 weeks, in my view, will have one big impact: is that PIF will not want it to happen again, and it wouldn't surprise me if in the background he's not got his lawyers on looking at how we combat this ridiculous PSR situation, because it's time we fought back. It's time we showed our teeth, because the one thing we've got is probably some of the best lawyers in the world, and more money than anybody else can get anywhere near. So I would hope that this fortnight pushes into action PIF looking at how not just sort the club out, but sort the Premier League out as well.
Gary Moffat Blues says he's back in the northeast at the minute and parked near the Discovery Museum. I hadn't been there for about 20 years, so I decided to take my daughter in. Are you the G Mitchell pictured with the FA Cup, he said?
Oh, I could be. Yeah. Certainly there's a number of pictures of us with the FA Cup, but I didn't realise they had one in the Discovery Museum. But it could well be. And I hope you looked at Tabinia as well. I mean, that's yeah. And an incredible museum, by the way. We shouldn't forget that.
JJ says, do you think, as I do, PIF can play the long game? There's no need to ruffle the EPL. We're doing very well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry to burst Mr. Isak's balloon as well. We don't really need to sell him. We don't really need to sell him at the moment either, and that's in our favour hugely. That's one argument he can't win. We don't need to sell him, and we don't have to sell him. That's I think that's the miscalculation that he and Liverpool and everybody else is making, is that we're desperate to sell. Well, we're far from it. We don't need to. The fact that we've had 3 lean windows has put us in a very, very strong position in winning the Carabao Cup and other things that have happened. If we'd even had a modest income from revenue on sponsorship, etc., we would be in a fantastic position, which makes Silverstone's position just look balmy. But no, we don't need to sell him at all.
Jeff says to JJ, was it not to JJ? It was to somebody else, wasn't it? He says, check the ears. Dead giveaway when he's talking about the photograph. We'll give Jeff, because it's a celebration of Jeff being in the chat. We'll give Jeff the last question. He says, question for George. How do you think the demographic crisis will affect access to the games for younger people?
My worry is not the demographic. It's the, well, I suppose it is. It's the financial side of things. I mean, the rises in tickets this year actually made me and Neil think about whether we would renew our season tickets, depending on how high it went. So if that's affecting us, supporter like me, supporter of nearly 80 years, then further down the chain, the opportunities for young people to go and see a match are disappearing. So yes, I suppose that is affecting the demographic, Jeff. It's why as well I would favour a bigger stadium. Then people talked about the 75,000. I would be happy with 80 plus. And if they fear that the stadium may be empty a little, then give some free tickets away to schools. Fill it with kids. Give the kids a chance to see their team. Is how I would approach it. So yes, it's a good point, Jeff. It's a good point.
Great stuff. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to you for watching. If you are watching on Twitter, please jump over to YouTube, search NUFC Matters, hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week and it is free to subscribe. George, thanks for your time, mate.
Well, thank you all for bothering to get up. It really is great, and it's a comfort. I could talk nicely with Steve for an hour, but it's much better if I'm talking to you. And it's also nice to get the odd question, which takes me into professional things and private things. I don't mind answering those as well. So thank you.
Top man. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, Steve.